good evening, welcome, wizards, witches, sorcerers, goettes, and other magical beings, to this short discussion. I'd like to talk about something that comes up pretty often in online forums, and that's practitioners who are just getting started and trying things out, having things go wrong for them. They find that in the aftermath of their initial experiments, sometimes things in their life experience an upheaval, or maybe they get ill, or just something seems to go awry, and they associate it with their magical experimentation. And they may or may not be right. Performing a divination might inform them. But barring that, assuming that they're correct and that something's gone wrong with a conjuration, or some spirit or deity has been upset and is now looking to take it out on them, what can they do to prevent this? And my mind immediately goes back to the grimoires, to magical literature that tell us about the past centuries and millennia of magical tradition. If we go back to the Greek magical papyri, we find objects like phylacteries that are protective, that protect an operator from various spirits, daemons, malevolent entities that might interrupt what they're doing. And even the grimoires have something similar to that. Objects meant to protect the operator, objects that are consecrated and ritually empowered with spirit in order to protect the operator. But I don't want to talk about those today, nor the more threatening sort of objects that a magician might empower, that provide some sense of protection. For if you go to someone's house and they are sharpening their knife in front of you, and this knife is sharp, you might think twice about messing with them. But that's not what I want to talk about today at all. I want to talk about the magic circle. The magic circle shows up in a lot of modern magic, whether it's Thelemic, Golden Dawn, Wiccan, or folk magic. We do tend to see these things show up, but they appear to have their origins in grimoire magic, those manuscripts from medieval, Renaissance, and even some modern European sources that talk about the magic circle. There's a lot of chatter online about what a magic circle is, how it works. More Solomonic texts do, in some places, state that the circle is an impenetrable barrier and that we should be very careful not to put any limbs outside of it. We may be vulnerable to attack. Author Jason Miller offers that it's more of a demilitarized zone. And I want to talk about a little bit how I think about the magical circle and what I do. I do deviate from the grimoires a bit. I don't tend to have monotheistic deity names written on my circle. I tend to use polytheistic deity names, and I structure my circle and empower it such that it's a supervised space. That is to say, it's a space where if I bring a new spirit, a new daemon, a new being or entity into, it's already supervised by powerful entities that I have a relationship with. And those are the names that I put on the circle. I don't just randomly put names on my circle. I add deity names of entities that I, again, have built over time a relationship with. And I've spoken to, I've requested and gotten feedback in the positive, in the affirmative, for those requested that they oversee my circle. Now, if you think of a powerful underworld deity like, say, Hecate, that's a deity whose view and whose power is not limited to some small space or some, imagined sphere or circle around you, but a being whose purview is much broader than that. And so I do not think of my circle as something I have to be extremely careful not to put my hand through, as a completely impenetrable barrier, an electric fence, if you will. I don't think of that at all. I structure my circle differently, so that it's a space that is supervised or overseen by Hecate, Hermes, and Hades, deities that I have relationships with and built relationships with. And they see well beyond the confines of my circle, as I have asked them to do. And so I'm not worried about that. I'm also not using my circle as an impenetrable barrier, because I actually want spirits to be able to interact with my divination devices and cards and dice and things, so I can communicate with them. And if my circle were a completely impenetrable barrier, I wouldn't be able to do that well. So I've structured my circle somewhat differently, so that spirits can start to move into that space. But at the same time, they mind their P's and Q's. They're on their best behavior, because no one misbehaves in front of ancient, powerful underworld deities like Hecate. Do I have a physical circle drawn on the ground? Yes, in the form of sort of a cloth that is painted on. Do I empower it energetically as well? Yes, and that's a more modern technique. There doesn't seem to be much in the grimoires about, pointing your knife and imagining energy, empowering something. Although there are a few hints of things like that, especially in Scott's Discovery when he's talking about the imaginary circle. But that's sort of more of the sort of astral magic comes later, Eliphas Levi, and then Golden Dawn folks, and of course later Thelemic and Wiccan and Chaos Magic definitely pick up the astral magical techniques. I do a little of that too. I also do a little of the more traditional fumigating with incense and sprinkling with consecrated water, because I adhere to those older techniques. I find them functional, highly effective, and useful. But let me show you a little portion of my circle. I told you that I get away a little bit from those monotheistic deity names, and I start to move into incorporating at least some more ancient polytheistic names on my circle. And for each of these, they aren't just a name drop for me. They're connected to deities that I have shrines to, deities that I've built relationships with, that I make regular offerings to, that I read Orphic hymns of theirs to, and have asked if and gotten confirmation that they are willing to protect, oversee, and supervise my circle, such that it is a safe space for me when I'm performing conjurations, doing spirit work, and doing my various other operations, so that, it can be a space where when I do bring in a new daemon or spirit, that it's a space where that spirit's able to move into and interact, but also feels watched by powerful entities. I also do preliminary invocations, of course, to empower myself, headless ritual here, such that I can speak with some authority toward the spirit. Anyways, those were just a few of the thoughts I wanted to share. I can talk a little bit more about various protective measures in another video, and ways to make sure that when you're interacting with demons and angels and other spirits, that you don't necessarily have to join the Burned Fingers Club, but that you can come out having successfully gotten what you're petitioning the spirit for, and do so without any major upheaval in your own life. Anyways, what kinds of different protective devices do you use? What sorts of magic, phylacteries, objects, and techniques do you apply to make sure that when you're working with new spirits, that you're in a safe space and that your life doesn't get torn apart? You can leave your answers in the comments. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon.